The last word presented by Crispin Commentary. It's a Friday, the last day of February. Can you believe it?
I always love the last day of the month being on the last Friday. It's a good day to buy a house and move over the weekend.
There you go. It's a great day to have the 9 o'clock fire drill. My buyer's got a truckload of frozen food. If they don't get in their house, all their food's going to spoil.
Their goldfish is going to die. Don't forget.
The eggs are going to go rotten. It's like smelting gold.
Right. Here we go, guys. I just thought we'd jump right in. No niceties today. Lots of news to report, so we're going to get to that. But something that's been coming up in a lot of conversations that I've been having, curious from the lender side, your side of the world, and for our audience, please weigh in as well. I think in these markets when every deal is gold, right? Every loan officer is trying to work every relationship, every angle, and get every possible deal out there. In the last, 3 to 4 weeks, I've had a number of conversations just around some of the loan products that exist for things like, solar energy and some of the green mortgage products, and even on the senior adult side, leveraging some of the tax benefits of converting to solar, and being able to use a mortgage product to finance solar versus traditional solar financing. So you guys are in the trenches. You've got originators on your teams that are certainly facing off with consumers every day. And you're both in markets that have a lot of sunshine, and probably where solar is more prevalent than here in Detroit. Just anything you're seeing or experiencing, or thoughts, comments on kind of all things solar and mortgage. And there's one guy in the comments, Ed A, that might have some thoughts on this. So Ed, drop your thoughts in too.
Hey, what's interesting is I learned a factoid, and who knows if this is really true, but I'm gonna repeat it like it's actually true. Is that more solar panels are sold in Texas and Florida than anywhere else in the country, and that Texas might even be number one. Which is interesting to me. My house does not have solar panels, but my parents' house in Georgia does. And it makes a huge difference. I think my dad's electricity bill every month is something like $11. Like, it's crazy ridiculous with what he pays. And it certainly makes a difference for affordability. Now, if he had to pay for those solar panels, if they didn't come already paid off with his house, would it have been worth it?
Yeah.
Well, obviously we're the original home of Tesla, and then they've moved their way over to Austin. And solar's pretty big out here. I looked at a Tesla roof. A friend of mine put it on his new house about 2 years ago, and it's unbelievable how expensive it's gotten because of demand. And so I know it's very popular to have that cheap bill. Tesla did something funny out here. They used to install it themselves, and then they just sub out all the contracting work to one place called McCormick. And as soon as they did that, they jacked up the price. And I'm not paying $250,000 to put solar in my freaking house. A cash price at one point was like, $120,000, which is still very steep. And now they're, we'll do a 15-year loan with you, and over time it's $250,000 with interest. And so it's just kind of stupid. But China's been dumping a bunch of cheap solar cells, the photovoltaic cells, which makes that happen. And, it's very interesting. People think with this new administration that solar's not going to catch a bid, but I have a couple of stock subscription analysts that actually said, solar did catch a bid the first administration, and, this administration is solar friendly. So I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not giving you a stock tip. I am not responsible for your losses, only your profits. But I do have a very long call option on TAN, T-A-N. And so I think solar's going to be good. As it relates to the originator, it's a nice niche. It's a cool product that you could talk about, whether someone does it or not. Everyone's looking for the riches and the niches. I think on our email, Christy, you brought up the home style renovation product. And as an option for that, of course, any of the PACE loans that HUD does, that's where you can look to do this kind of financing. If you already own the house, just find a good cheap second lien. We have a hybrid equity lightning product. We call it Lightning Equity. That's we just rolled out. The backbone is Figure technology.
I was going to mention Figure. Yeah.
That's a good product.
Dude.
To me, what's interesting about this,
easiest loan ever.
This conversation that we're bringing up is, whenever you buy a house, I don't care if it's brand new, unless you designed and built it yourself. If you're buying a house that somebody else designed or somebody else has lived in for a period of time, everything is not exactly the way you'd want it. There's always things that you want to do. And in a lot of cases, from an affordability standpoint, there are people who need to buy homes that are older and maybe not as updated. And so what people want to do for updates could include these cost saving measures with solar or other energy efficient improvements to bring down their cost. It's also better for noise reduction, like if you think about the double pane windows and that kind of stuff. But they may also want to do some other things. And I think that having a conversation with agents and with buyers around what does renovation look like and how can it put you in a home that better suits your needs and gets you exactly what you want. So maybe you're able to offer offer on a home that's a little less expensive than somebody trying to make up for what they put into the property. Get exactly what you want, buy a home, do a renovation loan. There are some great products out there, including the ones that we're talking about today, but there are many, many others.
Yeah, you think about how popular some of the real estate renovation TV shows are, right? And how people just eat that stuff up. And there's so much great technology now that you could literally look at a home that otherwise has no street appeal and, using some AI and some technology, kind of visualize what it would look like post acquisition, post renovation. And so, I love that, Christy. I'm seeing loan officers having to become more knowledgeable around real estate itself, right? To really provide the right financing solutions for their clients, and knowing how and when to use all these different financing tools to support a renovation or support upgrading, energy and solar and all that. I think it just creates more. It shows the value of the loan officer that really understands more than just the cookie cutter, mainstream loan products.
Well, there's 11 point. Oh, go ahead, Christy.
No, I say I've been watching Ed in the comments drop some amazing knowledge around solar financing, and I completely agree with you, Ed. I have seen so many deals blow up over the financing and lease of these things that it becomes a lien on the property, and then what do you do? So this is great. Courtney actually asked, "Hey Ed, can you drop us a link to some of these things so the nerds can educate themselves?" Right? We really want to, and that'd be great for everybody on here. That's the purpose of this show. We all want to get educated around things that we don't know.
Yeah, Willie put in there that California, it's mandatory on new homes. It's not. Maybe that's in certain counties, but I mean, I build houses and I've never had a mandate. Me and my construction partners, we've got currently 3 projects going, all ground up construction. I have not heard that new construction requires solar, but I'd love to hear, Willie, where that's at. 11.7, 13, depending on what report you look at, let's call it $12 trillion in tappable equity. Equity lending and equity financing is not going away. And, people are loan locked, right? Because they've got loans under 4%. And, so they just want to update their houses as opposed to maybe buying a new one at a higher price, at a higher rate with higher taxes and higher insurance and a higher tax basis. So, maybe going, just updating your house and refreshing it is the way to go. And again, I mean, there's just, we put in a pool here last January, a year ago, and I took out that Figure HELOC. It was the easiest loan I've ever done. It took 6 minutes of my existence on this plan.
Crazy? Yeah,
It's all blockchain. You don't talk to anybody. It's super quick. It's high FICO, low LTV type stuff. But and trust me, there was a time where I did not have a high FICO. And I blame the little swindler that walked into my house in Austin when I was in Texas. There, newly opened UFCU account. Thank you for my swag, by the way, Christy. I love it. Yeah, this guy came in. He's like, yeah, well,
Why you're not a member? Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, all
I
right.
can help you open an account later
I'll
today.
fix that. I'll send $5 as a deposit tomorrow.
Yeah. Hey, I read somewhere that there was a newly opened business with $100 into it, and then the government gave them $2 billion. So, not to get political, but you too could catch a windfall right there in your UFCU account. Just anyway. Yeah, I'm a big fan of these niche products and the equity products and all that kind of stuff. Our originators, need to be armed with this stuff. And of course, this kind of gets us into home affordability. I mean, we talk about, the big driver of home affordability is rates. And I'm not quite reading in the press, but rates are down. Like, rates are down big time. Like,
well, my weekly 10-year T-note update, we're at 4.235 right this minute. So
and everyone wants to blame it on tariffs and everything is because of tariffs now, right? Like, that's all. It's like everyone's looking for like the boogeyman of why did in October before the election, in November in the election, and then December, why do we have only a 2.3% GDP? Tariffs. It's got to be tariffs, right? No, we have a slowing economy. We've got, now I will say this first quarter, there certainly is some tariff risk and there's some uncertainty in the market. But I love the way rates are trending. We have a Secretary of Treasury that said, I'm going to focus on the 10-year. He said, we're not going to expand how much treasuries we're selling over the next 3 quarters. We are working to get mortgage interest rates down. We don't want to take the GSEs out of conservatorship if it will impact rates and make them go higher. And these are things that they're saying 6 weeks into this administration, and it's working. It's not just him or just tariffs or there's a lot of things that come out. Did anybody see the PCE report today? 2.5%. There was a little slight upward revision of the prior month. But PCE has trended down. That's not going to always go down a straight line. I think the next couple months, there are some tough comps there, and we might see inflation spike up. But historically, core PCE for 40 years has been at 2.2%. So it's never been at 2%. It's not going to go to 2%. They don't do 2%. They just say 2%. So people who are fixated on this 2% number, just recognize that 2.5 and 2.64 or whatever, 2.7, whatever the headline number was this morning, that's decent, right? So it's more disinflation. It's still inflation, and 90% of America is hurting. 90% of America has exhausted their savings. They are maxed out their credit cards. They are starting to default. Those are things that have been building and compounding for years and years and years, and that's a growth scare. And 2.3% is not a strong economy, So I'll just say that, bad news is good news for rates. And as long as the pace of bad news is just kind of slowly ebbing out, we could have slowly lowering rates as we go into the spring purchase season. We had our 2 biggest lock days of the month were Thursday and Tuesday. So I'm excited to see what happens today as well. We always, you bring up month end. I'll just put one little bow on it for the first comment. We do about 40% of our entire month's business the last 5 business days of every month because we're so purchase heavy. Yep. 650 retail loan officers plus a wholesale and correspondent channel. And all these originators are in the communities out there hunting for first-time home buyers. And home affordability comes in line when rates come down, and we push, all the laundry, get the laundry out, and then the locks come in these last couple of days of the month as they set up for the month of March, which is setting up very nicely.
Hey, KP, on those surges in rate lock volume, what did you see in terms of refi mix? Was it a pickup or pretty flat? So is it still mainly purchase transactions?
It's mainly purchase. We're at about 15% refi business on fundings each of January and February. I would say forward lock commitments that ticked up this month to about 18%. So, not a huge spike, but certainly nothing to shake a stick at.
Interesting data point from our friend, the bow tie economist. that one of his daily little blogs that he shared, talked about who's propping up spending in this market. And he said that just north of 49% of consumer spending is done by the top 10% of households, which are households making greater than $250,000 a year. And the bottom 90% only account for about 50% of consumer purchases. And that really supports what you're talking about, that consumers are tapped out, that 90% of Americans have spent all of their reserves. And you're seeing auto delinquencies shoot up. You're seeing purchase applications go down. You're seeing pending home sales, new contracts are down. If you look at the data from Mike Simonson at Altos, which is always great data. If you guys don't follow him, I suggest doing that. It's really going to be, I think, a challenging spring market. And I think it's going to be very different depending on the price point that you're in.
Yeah, and we know that there's really no housing stock under 300,000. So in this country, it's less than 4% of the housing stock has a $300,000 price point, and less than 1% is under 200,000. So rates coming down does make a $450,000, 430, whatever the median home price was on the data this week, more affordable for everybody. But that top 10% also has $1.3 trillion in savings and about $6 trillion in money markets and cash on the sidelines. And so 2 weeks ago, we saw $3 billion come into the stock market on one day. It was a huge inflow of stocks. And so, I'll say what I've always said: the middle class. You look at Europe, there is no middle class. Is have and have not. Either you own property or you don't. We're not there yet in America, and people can clearly sell their house in California and move to Boise or Dallas or or wherever, or Phoenix, and catch a bid. And Detroit, if you like cold weather.
Love you, Brian. Still not moving to Detroit.
Yeah, we like Detroit this summer.
45 right now. It's balmy.
I know you gonna go out for a run after this. Yeah. So I'll just add. You brought up auto insurance. The CPI was a little hot last month, but a big contributor to that was auto insurance, auto leasing, and that was for January data. That's unsustainable. That's not going to go up every month like that. Right. Home starts, home permits, that's seasonally slow because January is a cold month, and there are a lot of slowdowns in the South, surprisingly, because they caught some cold weather. But that season will pick up. We're seeing it in all the new applications, all the new contracts started. We have a ton of new users on FinLocker for Path Home for us, and we're seeing a ton of traction there within our walls. So, I think things will, as things thaw out, different markets catch a bid. I love how the Habibs break down on MBS Highway. There's a 2.2 month supply of homes, right? So even with housing starts and permits down, completed projects are selling because there aren't enough completed projects.
Right.
And so you got to kind of parse through that data and see that we're in a good spot from a housing perspective. I think we're back to where we were, where there's just not enough housing supply, and except for the little spike, there was a quadrupling year over year of jobless claims in the DC area, with 20,000 jobs and counting being cut as some of the fat gets trimmed by the Doge team up there. But even with that spike in new listings, it's still not enough to overwhelm the market. There still is going to be good absorption up there. So I'm very, very positive on the spring purchase season, very bullish. We're in a very good spot, and rates are coming down, and that's the big driver.
Love it. So Christy, of the three of us, you were the only one that attended the economic summit that Housing Wire just hosted this week. And I know we just covered some of the talking points, but what was the general theme of the day from Dallas?
And obviously this was a very heavy data centric, conversation. You had Logan Monashami kicked off the day with his data and his
sunglasses,
humor, right? And the humor that he brings to the situation. As an economist, and he'll tell you he's not an economist, but as an economist, he comes with this this market friendly, originator friendly conversation and just bring some reality checks to the data. Followed that up with Mike Simonson talking about, the real estate data and what the market looks like and how they're trending. I mean, we are at a low number for pending home sales and new contracts. And that means we might have a little bit tighter spring than we anticipate. Then Brian Hale got in and talked about the market, and Barry Habib gave his new forecast. And Selma Happ was there as well. And as you think about, like, if I just mish all that stuff together and spit out my little AI personal brain thing, I walk away feeling like you can't look at national headlines. That the national headlines are very misleading when you start to look at individual markets. That there is really not an average, which is what all the national headlines are. You've got to kind of get into the markets themselves and into some of the nuances. Like KP says, we don't have any $300,000 homes. I can't imagine that you could get something for $300,000 here in Austin. And you have to look at those individual markets and the individual trends, and sometimes down even into individual neighborhoods to really understand what is a good risk, what is not, and where you're going to succeed. And I think this is a challenge to the originators on the call that you brought it up earlier, Brian. People have to really know more about the market than they've ever had to know. And being out there and educating your real estate partners and letting them educate you on what they're seeing in specific markets and in specific neighborhoods so that you can put together a plan or even come back to your organization and say, hey, based on what we're seeing in the market, this is a niche or an area that we need to focus on. What products are available out there? What could we do? How could we educate the people on what we offer today that could be unique or different that can help folks with affordability? There's going to be a lot of that going on. And you are still seeing, KP, you talk about this almost every time we get on this call, that, divorce, diapers, diplomas, death, these things are still happening. Logan mentioned that from stage as well, that, the lock-in effect only impacts a certain amount of people, that others, life has happened and they're having to move forward. And you're starting to see that in the data with the percentage of loans that are at 3% or below. It's starting to move, and it will continue as time moves on. And that was really a big theme of what's happening is you just have to find the people that are doing loans. You've got to be more educated on the market. And there are a lot of reasons for optimism as long as you're being smart about what you're doing. Don't throw away your money. Don't just go willy-nilly feeling like it's going to be, a banner year. Be smart and you'll have business.
Yeah, I didn't make the Housing Economic Forum. I mean, they just did it at the same place, which was awesome, the George Bush Library there. But I was too busy taking my 11-year-old daughter who turns 12 tomorrow, my oldest, my sixth grader. We went and watched Luka Doncic get a triple-double and exact his revenge against his former Mavericks at the Lakers game. So
that's where you should be.
Yeah.
Nothing but family.
So funny story. So I walked down and I'm walking down to my seats, and there's this gigantic human being sitting there, and it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I sat next to Kareem.
You're as tall as his legs.
Well, they put him on the screen on TNT. They put the camera in his face. And they're like, we're gonna go live in 15 seconds. And he's a great human being. He's given back quite a bit after his career in basketball. He's aging, and I won't get into what my observations were of him, but I was like, hey, he had this huge wooden cane, and I'm like, hey, let me hold this for you. Let me get this out of the camera shot. You don't want anybody to see that shit. So, sorry to have missed that, but Logan is a great housing analyst. He's really good. His Instagram is a good follow. I think to be an economist, you need a PhD, and Selma's amazing. She lives in the LA area. Logan's here in Irvine and Orange County. I love listening to both of them talk. I love their data. I've been on multiple closed door meetings with Selma, and the data that Logan puts out, following the channels, following what's going on. He's definitely the brightest one there. When it comes to the data over there at Housing Wire. So, and that's no knock on anyone else. Love Mike Simonson's stuff as well. But I agree with you, Christy. I think, every market is got to stand on its own. I did a live podcast with Brendan McKay, who's running the Broker Action Coalition, and he was talking about his particular market, and people are uncertain and unsettled about whether to buy a house because they're not sure if the job and the government's going to be available. So there is some market turmoil there. Austin is outside of the 2030 city index for Case-Shiller, and Austin's seen on the high end some drops in prices, which have impacted the overall net numbers. But again, I mean, we just don't have enough housing supply in America, and as rates come down, I'm already seeing the stories. Multiple offers already. And so originators out there, tell your borrowers who are qualified, go find a house right now because it's about to get really, really busy.
So real quick, because I'm curious if you guys could point to the resource. So everything we're talking about is more or less at a macro level, right? And that's economics, but real estate is hyper local, right? So how do we help the originators out there? Like, what are the data sources that they could subscribe to, if you will, in their communities that are going to be, more local and have more relevance to the the buyers?
I bet you have one. I bet you have one you could recommend.
Well, I would always point to our friends at Home Genius and their data, but are there other tools that LOs subscribe to that are hyper local from a economic perspective and specifically a housing economic perspective?
So Mike Simonson, you can get on his weekly news list, and you subscribe by zip code or city, right? And once you get the link, you can actually plug in different zip codes and look at it. And it gives some really amazing data. I actually look at it on a regular basis. Not that he's pinpointing my house or anything, but I love to look and see, what's happening in the marketplace and really understanding it, even though I may not be out on the streets every day talking to realtors or borrowers.
Yeah, the one that gets used the most in our walls, well, first of all, the tech that gets used the most is MBS Highway. Yeah. I mean, I think originators, just they just eat from Barry and Dan's hands, and of course the whole team there. They bought List Reports a while back, and they've rebranded that product. And so the one that gets the most use in our walls is that product that's inside the MBS Highway tech. Then there are tons of them that are out there. I mean, I can go down a list of. There's literally a dozen of them that we could name that give you local market information. But it is powerful to get that information and come across as a trusted, educated advisor, especially to a first-time home buyer. But I think the macro, statement still holds. Like, get in the house. We just saw 4.7% appreciation when rates were high. Now rates are trending down. It's just going to be another growth year for home price appreciation, and almost every year has been, except for those years 2008 to 2010 when we had the global financial crisis. So it is always a good investment to get into a house long term, and regardless of what the local data says, just find a house you love and get under contract.
And the demand is clearly out there. I'll give you guys a little color. I did a post the other day, maybe it was yesterday. So Wednesday night, I dropped in on a webinar that a loan officer was hosting. This loan officer is out of Florida, Cole Brantley. Shout out Cole. Cole did a Facebook campaign. Luke Shankula, shout out Luke. Luke ran a Facebook ad campaign for Cole for a first-time homebuyer webinar. And so I think they ran the campaign for 5 or 6 business days, and they had 214 people RSVP for this webinar, right? I found out about it. I dropped in. I'm like, all right, I want to see what is he delivering? 80 people, 80 showed up for the full webinar, right? And the engagement, the questions that were being asked, there's clearly demand. And these were probably 90%, 95%. These are current renters. They want to own their first home. They don't know where to start. And so the demand is there. And I probably scream obnoxiously on this topic, but loan officers are uniquely equipped as the best financial resource in their local communities for educating and preparing these early journey first-time homebuyers, right? 6, 12, 18 plus months up the funnel. Nobody else is talking to them, right? Because they don't have assets. So They're probably not, working with a financial planner, certainly not a private banker. Why would a real estate agent want to work with somebody that's 18, 24 months away from buying their first home? The local loan officer truly is that unique, that best unique resource. And so, if you all are out there and you're looking for strategies that will differentiate you, and you're willing to play the long game, that's the cohort you want to point yourselves at. They're off on that. I'm off that soapbox.
But it makes sense. You think about the way that we've approached the business over many, many years. Everybody is looking for that ready, willing, able buyer that's going to buy in the next 60 days. Right? That's where the most competition is.
Yeah.
And as we think about how the market has shifted, and real estate agents still control a big piece of where buyers go, but that number is down significantly compared to what it used to be. You have to be in front of the consumer first. So you do have to play that long game if you want to continue to produce at the levels you've always produced for many originators. So how do you have systems and processes and things in place to not only get connected with them 18 months in advance, but to stay connected with them as they become that hot buyer?
Well said. The local originator, the best. The local originator, the best option for consumers, hands down.
Hands down.
That's the last word right there, KP. Way to close us out, guys. Enjoy your weekend. March is upon us. The spring season is finally hitting. I'm looking forward to getting kicked off, month kicked off next Friday. Folks, tune in again. If you want this to show up on your calendar every Friday, just drop your email address in the comments and I'll add you to the weekly calendar event. Otherwise, you can find us right here every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. The Last Word, presented by Crispin Commentary. Christy, KP. See you guys.
See you soon.